Thanks, Barry, and thanks for inviting me. This is my first time at AMEC, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last one, as all the session has been truly inspiring. We're very much mindful. We will keep it short and on time, as you know, I don't want to steal time from the refreshment and drinks, and I'm particularly sensible on that, being working in the spirits industry. So moving on, we're here today to share with you like the journey. I mean, we've been talking a lot about journey, but we are still at Campari Group in a journey in order to build a framework for the post evaluation whenever it comes to brand PR. And I would like just to make a quick point, because as Campari Group, the focus on our communication is definitely on brands. So for us, it's really key to make sure that we can learn about all the campaign and how to get better and raise the bar. So as we like always to make reference to the spirits industry, there is one cocktail in the world, which is the Negroni, which is so good because it's a perfectly balanced mix of 3 ingredients, just like our, measurement, which is all about like the approach we had within setting the new chapter. It's all about setting an evaluation culture, but even more setting a PR culture among the company. It's all about defining clear benchmark. I mean, we have a role as PR professional, communication professional to demonstrate, and not just marketing, but PR as well, can set KPIs and benchmark, because we do have an impact on our business. So defining that means that we're speaking the same language of the marketeer, the financial guys, and we need to remember that. And then, of course, the actionable insight, which without the partner in crime, Allison from HNK, and as well counter media, that would have not been possible. Going a bit more in depth within the 3 components is like why measurement matters at Campari Group. As I said, it's key to create the culture. We really need to define what PR does and how we can measure it. And it's really within the group, it's, I kind of had an entrepreneurial role because I'm not the only one working in PR at a global role, but as I do believe in that very strongly, I've been pushing for it quite strongly. And as well, within all the tools that we have internally, like, Marketing Academy and everything, I always push to add a PR module. And this is due as well to the fact that within our organization, I'm not as lucky in many others. I do not have PR professional in every single country, but I can count just a bunch of them covering the key markets. So most of the time, the PR work is done by the marketing team, brand manager working with agency. So culture, it's fundamental to have them embrace and understand, which is our role. And again, setting up common language and methodology and make it understandable. At the end of the day, we work in communication. If the people do not understand our language, let's adapt to their language. The objective is just to get it nailed. And again, this is critical because again, it demonstrates how effective we can be business-wise. It's like to make sure that we can provide to the executive members comparable data. It's like being able to demonstrate and provide standard KPIs that can be measured across global and local. Also because being global, I will never exist without the local work. So we really need to make sure we are aligned and build on those learning. So the journey, it started a few years ago. Oh, sorry. I knew that I was like, as I'm rushing, under pressure. So at Campari Group, we started this journey in 2013, leveraging on one of the key global program of the company, which was at the time Campari Calendar and now transformed into the Campari Red Diaries, which is a short movie. And so, we started to move, still working on AVA, but as well moving to a more qualitative analysis in 2013, partnering with an external provider, which was Counter Media, as well making sure that within the global campaign we can have a cross and standardization approach. Then, big hit, 2015, we moved on, we presented to the board, we said AVE is not anymore relevant, and so we drop it at a global project, because they know, even though they hide it, locally they still use it. But at least formally, they told me that they don't any longer. But then here comes the biggest milestone, 2017, where we actually decided to move on. And without knowing it, we kind of embraced the 3 I's and brought those to life. And how? Sorry, because there is a bit of like disconnection, sorry. And how we brought that to life? We brought that to life, bringing to life, which is one of the motto of the company, which is like building value together. So in terms of approach, we never at Campari Group have a top-down approach, but always very much horizontal and engagement. So as we were going to set the new communication, brand PR KPI, we had to do that together. So there was, of course, lead from myself and my colleague from the consumer insight team, because again, we need to work together. We engage number of colleagues from the global markets, covering a bit all the geographies, but as well PR professional, marketing directors, brand managers, because at the end of the day, they're gonna be the one that needs to bring that to life. Then, don't laugh about the torture test team. We need to be creative if we wanted to make through, but anyway. And then, of course, with Counter Media and H&K, and the torture test team was like professional, like colleagues of mine and the consumer insights at a global level that have not been exposed to all the work that we did, and have to like dry look and feedback if everything that we put together did actually make any sense. So that's how we define them. And again, whenever you do not have the expertise, I think, and that was like the key things, was fundamental for us to partners, with people that do manage that. It's their job in order to discuss and have, exchange opinion, because I know the company, but I know the market, and we need to find, a solution. And I think that the fact that today we're here together to presenting is a demonstration that we really conceive that as a, team effort.
Oh, I completely agree. And as we all know from Microsoft earlier, if you torture the data, and apparently your agencies, you have great outcomes. So let's talk a little bit more about how we get to that space where we have clear benchmarks. Unsurprisingly, it starts with how we set a new methodology. And for us, that really is going to always begin with aligning to the global standard. And obviously, that means the AMEC Integrated Evaluation Framework. And that was important to us for a few reasons, mostly because it's really flexible. The case we just saw demonstrates that it's not something you can just use for earned communications. It actually stretches much wider than that, which was critical for us because we had lots of different use cases across all of the Campari Group brands, and also lots of different channels to think about, which is what we did next. Because as you might imagine, within the work that we do, it extends from what you would typically consider earned communications all the way through big brand experiential activations. We needed to make sure that we were mindful of all the different data points we'd want to incorporate into this methodology. So we thought about those things in traditional media. How can we make sure that with our partners, we can collect print and online media, TV on the web and on broadcast, as well as social, which is increasingly a really important focus for all of the Campari Group brands. So thinking about things like media's presence on social media, because it's not just in the press anymore that your audience is going to see your information. It's also through their social channels, which is something we certainly saw in the campaign we'll share in a bit. And obviously PR recruited influencers, which again, not traditional earned comms, but a really crucial component for us. We then went about setting those clear definitions, because as Chiara said, it's really important, not only that we understand between the two of us what outcomes, outtakes, outputs we're looking to measure, but also how we communicate that back to an organization. And for us, one of the simplest ways to do it was to map all of those different types of measures against what would typically be a sales funnel. So starting with awareness, how do we understand reach? And critically, how do we define reach in a way that works both for us and the digital agencies who are also working in partnership? How can we start to think about how campaigns affect engagement, both from a literal social engagement perspective and engagement in the content, engagement with journalists, and drive consideration? And ultimately, how can we show that we are getting people to better understand each of the different Campari Group brands and driving preference with those key audiences? And certainly that's an area where we work very closely with the Insight team, because as you can imagine, a lot of that we're going to get out of surveys. So all of that is lovely and great, but how do you do that across a global company to ensure that we can consistently measure with enough flexibility for everybody? What we did was a tiered application of the framework. So for basic activations, we were able to just focus on getting the outputs correct, making sure that we understood those measures for awareness in particular, so that we could compare later on. For standard activations, it really becomes a build. How can we start to also get that more qualitative view of engagement, of consideration, so that they can get a little bit more of a holistic picture and again start to stack up? And ultimately for comprehensive, how can we make sure that we are capturing for those big flagship moments for the brands, everything from awareness through to impact? And the last and possibly most important measure that I didn't talk about yet is a custom impact score, which is really crucial, especially when we start to think about moving away from AVEs, because it means we need new benchmarks where perhaps we don't have them looking backwards. An impact score is great because it gives us that indexed figure off of 100 of what the ideal piece of coverage or content might look like, and then allows us to ladder it up. So we can look at it at an individual piece of content level, or we can look at it for the entire campaign, which we'll show you in a bit. And that's something that we're looking at across a number of different variables within a single figure that we then use algorithms to calculate. And of course, there we go, then we get to the fun bit. How do we actually deliver this back and make sure that insights are actionable? For us, that really comes down to thinking about how we can have easy to share and beautiful templates. As you might have guessed, Campari Group's brands are all about amazing imagery, impactful campaigns, and if we had reports that didn't look the same, it really just wouldn't translate. So, how we put it into action then, because obviously it's all well and good, we've built this. Even within a team, we still had 30 markets and all of the global brand managers to get on board. We did workshops, similar to what we've just heard. A lot of that was done online. Local toolkits, and obviously recorded all of that, so all of that is assets we continue to use.
So the best way how to bring to life actually, a new methodology, I've been lucky enough to kick off the entire process last year, but as well to apply to, I don't know, it's working? Okay. To apply to our Campari Red Diaries global campaign. And, we built the culture within this project where we had over 21 markets engaged in that. And building, again, kind of flow, the process, the reporting, ad interim reporting, really building the sense that evaluation matters and can, throughout the campaign, give you insight on how to adjust your campaign, because this campaign lasts for us 6 months, so it's really important to make sure that we can improve in it.
And of course, we can optimize throughout, because we have those interim reports, those moments where we feed information back to the teams.
Yeah. And again, for me, another very key point, as Allison was mentioning, reporting needs to be sexy. If we can, it's the best. And basically, this is a snapshot of a very long reporting that has been split in different deep dive sections. But this one chart does present the key results, and actually only through one chart we've been able to present the results to the board, so not overloading them with PowerPoint, but as well through an innovative, for us way, presenting the result through a short showreel. So you're actually the first one to get us sights on the results of the campaign.
You're doing great. I really do love this video.
So actually, this is really, we brought to life, and we're very pleased that we had the chance to, show it to you, the video, like the journey that we started
18 months ago?
18 months
Give or
ago,
take.
and technically, and they actually really brought to life through this global campaign, and of course, as reporting and evaluation and insight are done in order to raise the bar. I mean, the level of insight that we had through this campaign, you just see the numbers, but as I said, there are like many, depth analysis, qualitative, and like learnings which are gonna be applied in order to, get better. Last but not least, of course, I mean, we're here like, to celebrate in a way like the 3 I's, which for us, we define them into, remember, setting culture, clear benchmark, actionable insight. Here we are.
Thank you. "90 seconds to spare, Barry."
True to your word, under time. Perfect. And a great presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
And another, hand shot up already, another example. And what's good about this example for me is that it's a global PR group influencing and advising one of its major clients, leading to the adoption of the integrated framework. Was a hand shot up there, thank you.
Richard Bailey, PR Place. I'd love you to point me to the marketing manager who didn't want to do more marketing. But we can all point to PR and comms managers who do want to do less PR and less comms. And I know it's not about your presentation, but I want to kind of explore the bit you didn't talk about. How do you measure, how do you value the absence of something, the less of something? Because a lot of PR and comms is not about getting stuff out there. It's about managing an environment where you don't want things out there. I know it wasn't your presentation, but I just wanted to ask that question.
Sure. Well, yeah, it definitely is in our presentation, but I think for us, when we think about how this data is going to be used, a lot of it is thinking about what we take away as well as what we add. So for example, when we looked at the results from this campaign, Chiara and I have spent a ton of time looking through it, what worked really well and what perhaps we shouldn't do next year. So for example, thinking about how we use broadcast interviews differently, or thinking about how we focus certain key messages with influencers rather than trying to do all of it. I think that's really the power of this when we get under the skin of it. And obviously, we don't want to give away all the trade secrets of what we're going to do next year. But hopefully that answers the question.
But definitely, I mean, as at the beginning of the day someone said, it's all about failure as well. So whenever you're starting a new campaign, I mean, we had multiple assets, strategy in place. We did a lot of things. And then thanks to the reporting that, again, we show you just a snapshot of the great results, also because this is like, remember, we need to sell ourselves. So this is an internal tool to say, invest on PR. We do mean something, we do have value. But again, it's all about what makes the next campaign better is actually built on what didn't work on the current one.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. Now for a question on the presentation. Just here. Sorry, Bob.
Hi, Leo Eckley, My Market Insight. I'd just be interested to get your views in terms of benchmarking against competitors. Was it something that you did prior to the campaign, and how would it change what you would do next time potentially?
I mean, to monitor and get a benchmarking about the competition, we required, as you probably know, like bigger team, but bigger budgets, which, I mean, sometimes cannot happen. Nevertheless, of course, if I think about this project, the Campari Red Diary is not just like a spirits project, because it's a bit of a cross. It's a communication, it's a lifestyle platform. Nevertheless, definitely, I mean, looking not directly in the competitors, but like looking more, and thanks to Allison, like especially for the influencer part, we try to look at the industry benchmarking in that to try to set ourselves KPI in which we need to be, looking for next year.
Yeah, I think for a lot of what Campari Group does, it's very unique in the space, and it's not a direct one-to-one. There is no replacement for Campari, just to be clear. Yeah. So, I think it's useful for a lot of things, and the methodology actually could be flexed. So for some of the other brands, that actually is something that they can do, and that's why we've trained them up in how to do all of the scoring, all of the coding, use the templates to build those reports, and they can choose to do that for any brand they like, whether it's one of Campari Group's or not.
Okay, thank you. A short question, Barbara,
I'm Barbara Bassi from Italy. I'm delighted to see the adoption of the framework by an Italian big group. It is surely a big step considering the state of the art of communication measurement in our country only a few years ago, as you know. So my question is, what cultural challenges did you have to face within your company to make the adoption of the IEF possible?
I mean, I have to say that because of the approach that we had in order to, bring it to life, we didn't really had, and actually has been well accepted, in terms of like next step. Of course, the most critical trigger now that markets needs to develop it is like getting into the mindset that whenever you're approaching a campaign and a PR campaign, you need to put aside budget for the post-evaluation, because, I mean, it's not something that comes at the end, oh, I have some budget left. It needs to be strategically thought and defined at the very beginning. What are the KPIs and the structure? So again, within, certain markets, as I said, in which, maybe the PR word is not top mind or is not considered, to already set aside an amount of budget for post-evaluation. This is, I think, not just for us, but for the majorities of the company, the key areas, of trigger.
Okay. Chiara and Allison, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.